Hi, my name's Aron Gelbard. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Bloom and Wild, and today you're listening to Scale with Soul.
What does balance look like? What is working too much in your eyes?
There's two ways of answering that question. One is if I'm not getting enough sleep or not having enough time to fit in exercise or not doing my fair share of like household or parent stuff. So it's taking up more time than it should, and like it should take up a lot of time. My CFO calls it being on the black run, and I think it's a great expression. I've chosen to like have a difficult and intense job, but sometimes it can take up even more time than that. I think that that's like the sort of outcome. The root cause is I often spend time doing activities that maybe I should leave other people to do and should not do, but that's my Achilles heel, but maybe also my superpower.
The sort of shadow side to every superpower, right?
I guess so.
Is that what you mean when you speak about the inefficiencies in your working style, or are you referring to something else?
I think there are two inefficiencies. I think one, I touch a lot of things, and there are probably things that I shouldn't touch, or I should wait before touching and let somebody else touch them first and come back to them if it's really necessary. I think I can also, when touching them, think about whether I really need to touch them, having waited for somebody else to do so, because maybe the touch that somebody else has had is enough, and my intervention isn't necessary. That's one thing. The second thing is I context switch way too much. So I'm very easily distracted, and I get halfway through doing something and then I switch to doing something else. I have hundreds of tabs open at any time. I have thousands of tagged messages in my Slack, all sorts of things like that. So my world of work is very messy, and I bounce between things all the time, and that's probably more inefficient than being more disciplined about doing one thing at a time. But I also have a lot of things in my head at any one time, and I feel that if I just focus on one thing and shut out everything else that's going on in the world of my work around, then I might be over dedicating myself to one thing, which might have been the most important thing when I started it, but might not remain the most important thing through the time I'm doing it, because I want to know what's going on. I want to unblock people. I want to participate in conversations where I think my input is helpful, or I think that I can support people by inputting. I think that I can prevent things going in the wrong direction if I input sooner rather than later. So I'm constantly striking this balance between, on the one hand, trying to work more efficiently and therefore also, as you said, achieve a better work-life balance. But on the other hand, trying to stay on top of many things, probably more than I should.
Do you have any way of measuring what efficient work looks like to you? Like, what is the dream balance of jumping between tasks, unblocking people, deep work, delegating some tasks, not delegating others?
I guess the outcome of efficient work is that my work is fit into a manageable amount of time in my life, while also achieving the many business outcomes I want to achieve. So there's like, I guess, like financial outcomes for our company, there are customer outcomes, there are team outcomes, there are investor outcomes, all sorts of things. So that's one, I guess, measure of efficient work.
Where do you think it's been a benefit to the business?
So if I kind of go back to the beginning,
Yeah.
the flower business, and now we're in like gifts more broadly, but we started in flowers. It's an unusual one because for the amount of money people spend with us, they care an enormous amount about the experience that we give them. And they can be genuinely over the moon, and they can be furious. And for something that costs 20 or 30 pounds, that's quite extraordinary compared to other things in that price point. And so because the range of outcomes is so high, I care a huge amount about getting these great outcomes and not poor outcomes, partly because I'm trying to build a brilliant company and I want to make flower gifting better, make it the joy that it should be, partly because I'm personally motivated by feedback and I like receiving positive feedback and I don't like receiving criticism. I think that probably applies to everybody, but it's probably a bit stronger for me than for other people. And so bringing those things together, if I can find ways of avoiding customers being unhappy and instead making them happy and build systems to capture these causes of unhappiness, either once they've occurred or before they occur, and understand what drives customer delight and how we can achieve more of that, then that's ultimately what we're trying to do. So I care very, very much about giving customers a good experience and not giving them a bad experience. But to do that is really difficult because otherwise everybody would do it. And there are many things that we need to do in order to give customers an amazing experience. We need to source beautiful flowers and make beautiful bouquets, and we need them to arrive on time. We need to give people good customer delight, and then we need an app and a website that works. But then as you go sort of further under the hood, we need a team that's happy, because without that, none of those things that I just listed would occur. We need to make money, because without that, we won't be able to afford to attract and retain great people, or we'll be unable to invest in making the things that I listed better. So therefore, our financial performance is better. In order to do that, in the early days, we needed to raise investment because we were trying to grow rapidly, and so we're loss making in our early days. So if you start from what you need to achieve for your customer, and then think about everything else that you sort of downstream need to achieve in order to get there, it's a huge number of things. And obviously I'm not doing all of it myself, but ultimately everything's my responsibility. And I want all of those things to work well. And so that's a lot of things to occupy my headspace.
You said in another interview that you view being a CEO as being at the bottom of an upside down pyramid, where you are the point in which you're holding up everyone else, which I loved.
I think about that every day.
You think about that every day?
Yep. In
what sense?
Well, I don't want to compliment myself on my own analogy because I'm not really like that, but it's a really good articulation of how I approach doing my job leading a business, because most things should be solved by other people, but as the CEO, anything could make it down to me at the bottom of that pyramid, and you don't know which thing it's going to be. And my goal is to have sort of strong rather than porous bricks in the pyramid, the floors of the pyramid above me, so that things don't make it down to me. But ultimately, everything is my responsibility if it reaches me, and I'm sort of the last line of defense. And so I feel like I need to have an understanding of every area. Obviously, I don't have the deepest understanding of any area because I have great people around me and they are excellent, and they have great people around them, and we have a well-structured organization. But I can't just say I'm going to ignore such and such an area and just leave it to somebody else and pay it no attention at all.
And this value that you were describing, which fuels all of these aspects of the business and why you're so invested, is care wildly, which seems like the cornerstone value of the business. Is that right?
I don't like to sort of prioritize values over each other, but yes, that's also probably right. So in the early days of Bloom and Wild, we had 5 values: care, pride, customers first, delight, and innovation. and we co-created these democratically as a small group of 20 or 30 people at the time. I really pushed for care as the one that I wanted there, because I think if we care more, if we chase things down that other companies don't chase down, if we go the extra mile for our customers, then they're going to be more delighted with us and other people. They are going to tell their friends about us. People receiving our product are going to become customers, and we're going to grow and build a great business. So, and I thought we didn't have many natural advantages. We weren't, I didn't grow up with like a flower farm that was sort of magically growing better flowers than other online flower companies have got, or, I'm not like a coding whiz kid that could make a better website or anything. So what I had to bring that I thought was unique and differentiated was this extraordinarily strong sense of care. So I pushed for that because I wanted that to be people's mantra. And if everybody worked in that way, I thought we would make a better company, because despite being at the bottom of the upside down pyramid, I'm not going to be involved in everything. It's not scalable. And so I need other people to have the same approach to caring wildly, as I do. And if everybody who notices something says, I want to A, fix that, B, understand why it went wrong in the first place so that it doesn't happen again. We don't do this perfectly, but if that's everybody's mantra, then we'll have far fewer problems than if people, walk past broken windows and decide that they can ignore them. 8 years in, we acquired 2 other businesses. And once we become a group of 3 companies, we created new values as a group, because we didn't want to impose Bloom and Wild's values on Blue Mon and on Bergamot, the 2 companies that we acquired. And when we did that, each of the 3 companies had its own values. There's quite a lot in common, but everything was articulated a bit differently. And I didn't want to play a super strong role in the process, because my voice is a loud one in a group. And so I wanted to let others co-create the values. But it was important for me that care really remained present. By then, Care Wildly had also become an external-facing brand slogan. It still is at the time of recording this interview, for the Bloom and Wild brand. And for me, I like it when a company has the same promise internally as externally. I think it's authentic. I think it's a good way of looking after your customers. And we, as a group of people, care wildly about everything we do, and in particular about how we serve our customers. Our customers themselves care wildly about the people that they are sending flowers or a gift to. And because of that, they choose Bloom and Wild as we hope, a more special and more thoughtful option than some of the other ways that they can express that emotion. And we are pact with them as they're choosing us and trusting us to express their care. And then we're pouring care into everything we do to deliver on our promise to our customers and earning that trust that they've placed in us. So Care Wildly, as it's currently called, which is one of now 4 values, is super important to me. The other 3 values, which I can talk about as well, are also important, but they aren't the one that I personally have pushed for in the same way that I've pushed for the Care and now Care Wildly value.
It really connects with me as well.
Say more about that.
There's no real benefit that you get from coming on this podcast. We have a very small audience. It's not like you don't get much of a marketing uplift, but my promise to people is that I will put in more effort. I will care more than anyone else will. I will go to more effort to make this a special experience, regardless of any sort of like tangible outcome that you get. And actually, it should just be a memorable experience.
Yep.
Because I care more.
I can see that with the many touches in how this interview has gone already. So
appreciate it. But I'm interested in the shadow side of caring wildly. As you mentioned, in order to provide this exceptional experience for customers, there are all these other elements of the business which have to also work and which you're also responsible for to be able to deliver this to deliver this incredible service. And so how do you balance caring wildly and just like solving customers' problems like that with then needing to run an efficient commercial operation?
Yeah.
Because that's where it feels to me like there could be tension, where you would just spend money to solve the customer's problem, whenever they come to you with any problems.
So there are a couple of ways of looking at that. Firstly, we've analysed it, and spending the money is a good idea. So the more generous we are with our customers in resolving their complaints, the higher their lifetime value is, even subtracting the financial cost of the generosity. And that relationship is very strong. And as I've learned that, it's made me realize that I'm not just, sort of being altruistic here. It's actually good business sense as well. And our best customers aren't customers for whom nothing has gone wrong. They're customers for whom things have gone wrong. And whenever they do, we go the extra mile. And when you ask our customers what they love about Bloom and Wild, especially customers who've ordered hundreds of times, they frequently cite the customer service. If a customer never has anything go wrong, they never contact the customer service in the first place. They don't know whether customer service is good or not. And we have customers where that's the case. But things do go wrong. We're in the flour part of our business, which is still the majority of what we sell. We're sending perishable products, so there can be things that occasionally go wrong with the flours themselves, which they're just unpredictable. We're using third-party delivery companies. We work very hard on selecting the right companies in each country where we do business and managing those delivery partners and building technology to do so scalably, but not every delivery arrives on time. So there are aspects of what we do that are prone to error. And so if a customer has ordered 100 times, it's likely, or even 20 times, it's likely that something has gone wrong at some point. And we want to know about that. I want to know about that personally, because maybe we'll be able to fix it and prevent it from happening again. I'm obviously not replying to all of the customers myself anymore, although I still reply to some. And if we see things going wrong and we can address the root cause and prevent it from happening again, then that's brilliant and we've learned something. So I reject this notion of it's expensive to have good customer service as a bit of a false economy. We actually also have proactive good customer service as well. And these are some of the things which our customers love the most. So my favorite example, which we've done for many years now, is we do what's called proactive resending. So if I take Mother's Day, for example, which is an important trading period for us.
Isn't it the important day?
It's the most important trading period for us. But we don't just do this at Mother's Day. We do it at Valentine's Day and Christmas and Father's Day and all sorts of times. We encourage people not to order for delivery on the Sunday if it's Mother's Day, step one. So we therefore charge more for it. We tell people it might arrive late on Sunday evening, which it might, by which point it sort of feels like an afterthought. And so we encourage people to order on Saturday or even on Friday. If somebody has ordered not for the final day, we can track whether their delivery's definitely going to arrive, probably going to arrive, probably not going to arrive, or has no chance of arriving. And we've built technology to do that in an automated fashion. If it's not going to arrive, I think it's terrible for customers to wait till Monday for them to say, why did the flowers not come for Mother's Day? We knew that. If we didn't know and we were missing information and we had unreliable data from a carrier or something, then that's different. Or like the driver couldn't find an address. Things like this can go wrong. But if we know that something's not going to arrive, we're anyway going to give the customer a refund or a resend or whatever they want, because we know that it pays to be generous. So it costs us the same to work it out before they do and solve it in advance rather than waiting for them to complain. And customers think this is the most incredible thing in the world, that we send them a message saying, your flowers might not make it for Mother's Day. So we've sent an extra out. And if we've sold out of the bouquet that they ordered originally, then we've sent an upgraded extra out that we've not sold out of. The recipient, mother figure, might get 2 deliveries. If we were wrong, even better. So for me, this proactive customer service, which you might say, oh, that's expensive, is generating a massive increase in customer lifetime value over people where we're not doing that. So I guess that's one side of, like generosity doesn't make our business inefficient. The other side of it is the working process inefficient of people, me as the founder, CEO figure, being involved in lots of things and lots of people being involved in lots of things. Probably yes, and I'm involved therefore in fewer things than I used to be because we have values, and so other people think in the same way, and other people make these decisions. And if every player in the football team is chasing the same ball every time the other team gets the ball, then that's not your team's going to be exhausted. So you need to so operate like a modern team, and everybody marks a different player on the opposing team and things like that. So obviously we work in that way. But to stick with my football analogy here, as the sort of coach or manager or player manager, I want to be aware of who everybody on my team's marking, and not just sit in the chairman's office and look at the results on the league table position.
Combine the sports team analogy with the upside down pyramid, and you're like the goalkeeper, player manager.
I use the word goalkeeper very often internally, and I don't know if you had come across that, or that was serendipitous. My number one piece of upward feedback, I get upward feedback twice a year from my exec team and once a year from the whole company, is to goalkeep less. So my natural instinct is to be aware of every potential shot on goal and try to save it. And actually, my exec team all tell me consistently, and they're right, rather than trying to be an amazing goalkeeper, I should try to be an amazing coach, in particular an amazing defensive coach, and coach the defenders, who are, I guess, my exec team, the level above me in the upside down pyramid, to prevent shots from being taken on goal, rather than try to save many shots that are coming at the goal. And I'm trying to work on that. This requires patience, because sometimes I'll spot something before somebody else has spotted it, and so the easiest thing is to try and make the save, and actually the shot hasn't necessarily even been taken yet. It requires trust that other people will arrive at what I think is the right solution. Normally they'll arrive at a better solution than me. Sometimes they won't because they don't have the context. So I've been here since the beginning. There's this topic of founder mode that's going around at the moment, and I guess I'm the only person that's seen everything, and that is sometimes relevant because people will want to try something that we've tried before, and they don't know that we've tried it before, or there's some other piece of context. A good example of this is the commercial performance of Valentine's Day varies heavily depending on what day of the week it's on, and it's 5 to 6 years, any Valentine's Day, not 7 because of leap years, since the previous time that it was on the same day of the week. So when Valentine's Day is on a Saturday next year, most people won't have been at the business last time that it was on a Saturday. We don't have very good data from last time that it was on a Saturday, because we've got better systems now, and we hadn't acquired other companies and done like platform migrations and things like that. But I know that Valentine's Day on a Saturday is weaker than Valentine's Day on a Friday, because people will go out and buy flowers for their loved ones in person. So sometimes I've just got the context, or sometimes there's something cross-functional and people are in their lane. and I can connect the dots between something that's going on in our marketing team and something that's going on in our tech team, for example, and the leaders of those functions will often know about what's going on in each other's lanes, but sometimes I'm going to see that.
What does working on that look like?
Trying to bite my tongue, not replying as fast, waiting for somebody else to do so. If I do think an intervention is necessary, then suggesting the intervention privately to the person who is the right person to be making the intervention, rather than me jumping to make it myself. One of my exec team thinks I should be more prepared to concede goals, and I have too high a fear of things going wrong. He's sort of right, but I also don't fully agree with him on this. I think there is a value in learning from mistakes on the one hand. On the other hand, I think you can learn from near misses as well as from mistakes. And I think one of the things that's made our company excellent in the eyes of our customers, not my own personal biased view, is that we see things that might go wrong and we do something about them.
Do you view the company as being excellent in your eyes?
Yeah. But it's important for me to substantiate that. So if I think it's good, then that's obviously better than if I think it's not good. But I obsess over what sort of reviews we get from our customers on all sorts of review platforms, what sort of CSAT scores we've got, what sort of NPS scores we've got. I also obsess over any negative movement on any of those metrics and try to pinpoint why it's happening. So we have automated systems that are gathering and using AI to analyze all of this feedback that we're accumulating across our countries, across all of these various ways that customers can give us feedback, and are spotting patterns. So if we're finding, for example, that Net Promoter Score has worsened in Belgium, that's useful information in itself. If we know that it's worsened and the reason why it's worsened is that people are talking about delivery, that's rather than sort of quality or like the website not working, that's more useful. If we can see that people who are complaining about delivery all had their flowers delivered by courier A rather than courier B or courier C, that's more useful still. If we can see they're all in the same town, then we can call up courier A today and say that we think they've got a problem with the drivers they're using in town X, and therefore our customers aren't happy. And firstly, can they go back out and deliver those deliveries in town X again before it's too late? Secondly, can they take a look at what's going to happen in town X tomorrow? Now, if we didn't have these feelers out all over the place, and this requires is not just like me or even a person noticing this. This is large scale data collection and analysis, and then rapid acting on this analysis to solve customer problems as quickly as possible. That's a massive advantage, and that's that points to one of our other values, which so I said I care about all of them. And one of the other three values is think deeply, act swiftly. And I think getting to a superficial solution, we could just say, oh, Net Promoter Score is down in Belgium, so why don't we drop our prices? Because then customers will be happier than if they're higher. They probably would, but it's not solving the right problem, and it might be an unnecessary investment, and that comes at a cost, and those price drops mean something else that we can't invest in because we have finite resources. So trying to be specific about what the problem is means that we can be specific about the action that we take. But I also don't want to spend months working out what the problem is, by which point we've got a terrible reputation in Tanex in Belgium, and the driver that was not delivering parcels correctly probably doesn't work at this courier anymore, and so our solution is worthless.
That feels like a perfect representation of focusing on the system, not the symptom or the immediate symptom. But it feels like that is a different approach when it's you working internally, like where you were describing you being on lots of tasks, touching lots of points, and sort of being the keeper that saves and jumps in, feels like more fixing the symptom than the system. Whereas in that instance is a perfect example of building an incredible system.
I want to make sure that there is a system to solve the symptom wherever there is a symptom. So I am goalkeeping, now that we're using this word, to make sure that the system is kicking in. I don't want to work out what the cause of the symptom is myself. I want to make sure that somebody is working out what the cause is, and I want to have high confidence that they're reaching the right conclusion. I don't need to do it myself. It's more making sure that it's happening rather than that it isn't happening. And typically somebody else will do that. Doesn't get to the goalkeeper. The defenders notice it, or it doesn't get to the bottom floor of the upside down pyramid. But if they don't, then I'm the last line of defense.
Going back to care wildly and think deeply in all of these values, great businesses bake their values into every element of the business. And so I'm sure it's within your hiring process, but then once people are in the business, how are you incentivizing, behaving in line with these values? Yep. Like, how are they operationalized?
So the biggest thing we have is, it's quite simple. We have a values channel on Slack. Anybody can nominate anybody else for embodying one of our values, either privately, or the nominator can either be private or public about the fact that they're making the nomination. And we then have a monthly shortlist, which is presented at our monthly all hands, of one person for each of our four. The person who's most embodied each of the four values, and then we have a company-wide vote for a values winner, and they win a prize. And this ritual, I think, is valuable because people are constantly reminded every month of the values. People hear great examples. People vote for their examples. They see their friends winning prizes, and it's democratic. People are making the nominations themselves. So, for me, that's the strongest artifact we have to embody values. But I think then, because of this reminder that's achieved through that process, which for me is it's more in people's face than there being posters in the kitchen or whatever, which people sort of stop noticing after some time, or they don't really understand what stay open, be curious means. But if they understand who has won the Stay Open, Be Curious nomination for the last year, each month, and why, it brings it to life more. And I think because they're all brought to life repeatedly for people understand what our values are and they embody them themselves. So I don't think there's anybody in our business that doesn't know that care wildly is a value, or doesn't understand what it means, or doesn't realize that they should care, and if they say that they don't care, that's not the way we work as a business.
Are these prizes, I'm guessing they're not bouquets of flowers, I'm guessing they're either financial or they're gifts?
It's a voucher to go to either a restaurant or a treatment.
It feels like caring and kindness is so innate in you. When I spoke to Caroline, your wife, she said he cares really deeply about other people. One of the most extraordinarily thoughtful people that I know. And to the extent that she shared an anecdote where even at home, in every aspect of your life, you're caring wildly. She said that it was last Friday, and she'd had a terrible day at work, and the kids were struggling, and she had to get off to an event, and she was rushing in behind. And she said that you just stopped her and said, "I've ordered you an Uber. It's an Uber Comfort. You can do your work in the back of the Uber, and you can get to your event less flustered." And then earlier in the day, where she'd brought the kids back from school, and it was or from somewhere, and it was a long drive. When they arrived, there were iced glasses of water on the table waiting for them when they arrived. Like all of these beautiful small touches, it feels like it's so deeply innate with you.
I'm touched that she shared those. But so, it feels like you want to ask me a question, but if I can just comment on that. It's how I like to be. So partly it's how I like to run my business, but I also think it's how I am as a person. And I think if you look after people well, whether they're your customers or your family or your friends, it's rewarding. I like that sense of looking after people. I like that they appreciate it, and that's like the quid pro quo. But it's nice to do it, and I think often where people have made an effort, or where they've sort of found an opportunity to be thoughtful, that counts more rather than just like spending lots of money. I'm going to call you out, AJ. I arrived for this interview, and you'd asked Caroline, who told you that I like spicy snacks, and you had spicy snacks on the table. They probably cost like £5, which is not like zero, but it was like the thought that counted. It's not that you presented me with like a bottle of like a magnum of champagne or something, which would have been much more expensive, but it would have not shown this thoughtfulness in the same way. And I think showing thoughtfulness to people has a lot more impact, and it's how I like to be, both in my work life and in my like non-work life.
It's very clear, and I respect it, and I appreciate the acknowledgement as well, because I completely align with you. The challenge, or the shadow side of having kindness, and I think the aspect of it that many leaders struggle with, is how do you balance kindness with high performance, with holding people to account, with giving difficult feedback, with setting a very high standard. They often feel in tension with one another. How do you strike that balance between them?
Yeah, they are in tension, but it's solvable. So firstly, you can deliver a difficult message in a kind way. And the most difficult message I've ever had to deliver in the time that I've led Bloom and Wild was when we did a redundancy round, and I told people they were going to be losing their jobs. I didn't deliver this message individually to people, because people's managers did that. So I did where I was their manager, but I delivered the message collectively to our organization, and it's a terrible message to have to deliver. But I think I delivered it in a authentic and empathetic way. I was vulnerable about how it made me feel that we were in this situation, and I think people could tell that I cared, and I didn't take it lightly. And because I very much craved this positive feedback and validation, this is something I was terrified of doing. But it was also it would have been short-termist not to do it, and if I hadn't done it, we'd have lost more money, and it was a difficult environment to raise money in, and I'd have had to, do it at some point further down the line, and it would have more people would have been impacted. So sometimes the shying away from these difficult messages is like a false form of kindness, because you can't shy away from them forever. So I think understanding that there are difficult decisions to be made sometimes, and being kind and empathetic in how you deliver them is what you need to do. I remember I went home that evening, the day of the redundancy announcement, and people said they were going to go out to the pub, and I sort of felt like I wasn't going to go with them, and I wanted people to sort of feel that it was a safe space, and I wasn't, sort of like monitoring what they were saying, and if they wanted to complain about me, then they could. And normally I do participate in company social events, but I felt this time I wasn't going to go. And I'll never forget the team, after going to the pub, they went out to the local karaoke joint, and somebody started a chant about me, and literally the whole team was like in this karaoke joint chanting positively about me on the day that I told lots of people that they're going to be losing their jobs. And it was the most moving piece of I guess like feedback or experience I've had from my team collectively. To me, obviously one person started it, but everybody joined in. They didn't need to do it. I wasn't there. They didn't need to take a video of it. They didn't need to send it to me. Well, I didn't expect it at all. And I felt that even though I'd delivered this terrible message, I'd done it in a kind and authentic way, and that my team had recognized that, and they'd done a really kind thing back to me. And I think the person who started this off had probably realized how I felt about doing this as well, and that this would be a lovely thing to do for me. So I shared that story because I do think that now I may be painting a sort of rose-tinted picture here, and I'll come on to where you do have to make a trade-off. But I do think that in many cases you can do something difficult, but do it with kindness, and that's better than not doing it. And it's often you need to sort of think more long term. We would have better profits, in the very short term if we didn't do proactive resends at Mother's Day and hope that people didn't notice that the flowers were late. Maybe some people's mums go away and we could get away with the flowers arriving on Monday and people wouldn't notice. But in the long term, we wouldn't be a special company if we acted in that way. And it's the same in terms of how we treat our people. If we treat our people well, understand their feedback, and act on it where we can, then we build a better company. Sometimes we can't, and this is why I said, maybe there's a risk of looking at it through rose-tinted spectacles. So if I'm sure everybody on our team would love it if we had pay rises annually that were triple what they are. But we can't do that, and so it's important to us that we pay fairly, and we benchmark internally and externally, and do a diligent job of that. But we have finite resources, and we have to live within our means. So therefore, some people are more disappointed with lower pay rises than high pay rises. I think we're giving people, we're treating people fairly, but there is always a trade-off. And I think as long as you're explaining to people why you're doing something the way you are, why you think it's fair, and creating a culture where people can speak up, they can ask questions openly, anonymously if they want to, and you answer those questions respectfully and consistently, I think that's the right way to lead a business.
And that's how you ran that redundancy conversation or announcement.
I'm telling two different stories.
But it feels like the thread applies to both. Explaining why a decision has been made, explaining what the boundaries are that you have to work within. So that's why I made the link, and I was guessing.
Yes, that's right. if we don't make firm and fair decisions, then we will need to make more difficult decisions in the future. So if we didn't do a redundancy round when we did in 2022, the company would have been in poor financial health. If we gave everybody a 30% pay rise every year, the company would be in poor financial health because we can't afford to do that. So we have to live within our means, and in some cases that might mean we disappoint people. Obviously, if we tell somebody they're losing their job, disappoint is an understatement, but we have to make decisions that preserve the health of the business. There's no point making short-term decisions and then not having a business in the future because we made short-term decisions. That's going to please nobody.
I would love to go on to obviously how you decide whether some people stay and some people leave is based on a level of performance and necessity of their role in the business. But specifically on the performance element, something I feel like I still haven't figured out is how you set targets that are both stretching an individual, the team, or the company, but also aren't impossible. Phil Burton, your old COO, said that kindness for you is clarity, collaboration, and reasonableness. And he said that you have the highest standard of anyone I've worked with, and you drive others to hitting those, and you act as a thought partner in doing so. And so how do you build a high-performance culture? One question down from that, how do you set high-performing targets which strike this balance?
Yeah. I think one of the most difficult jobs of the CEO that cannot be delegated is to set the ultimately financial but also contributory non-financial goals of the company such that external stakeholders are satisfied with the company's level of ambition and internal employees are satisfied with the achievability. And this is a difficult, maybe the CFO can be involved here. We only recently hired our first CFO a few months ago.
Wow. How many employees do you have?
About 400.
Wow.
But for me, this is a really important job of the CEO because if you have a fully bottom-up goal-setting process and everybody has goals that they're very confident that they can achieve, then our shareholders are going to think that we could be doing more, and we'll push for that. And then the shareholders end up sort of like managing the goal-setting process rather than the CEO managing it if they're not happy with the CEO's attempt. Similarly, if the CEO overpromises and knows that they're going to underdeliver, and the team feel that the goals are completely unachievable, then you're going to have a disenfranchised team. You're also going to miss your budgets or goals or whatever it is. Your shareholders aren't going to be happy anyway. So it's really important to understand what is realistically ambitious and have a specific view of how you're going to get there. If you say, oh, well, X country grew 15% last year, so let's just stick 25% in the budget for this year and hope for the best, but you don't have a view of what you might be able to do to drive that improvement in performance, then there's a high chance you won't get there and you'll lose credibility with your board, shareholders, etc. The team won't have a view of how they're going to get there, and so they'll feel disenfranchised about it. So no, you can't figure out everything, and obviously, there will be unexpected headwinds and tailwinds that you don't anticipate. For us, we had a extraordinary and very sad unexpected tailwind, which was the COVID pandemic, which maybe we'll talk about in a bit, which massively drove our business forward. But so you can't anticipate everything. But if you have a view of how you're going to get to some goals that are both ambitious but also realistic, and you can bring the team with you, and you can agree at a broad level how you're going to get there. So what the annual strategic priorities are that we're trying to drive, how we're going to measure those, and maybe how they pertain to different functions or business units or products. I think that's a really good start. But that calibration of targets or goals or budgets between external stakeholders and internal stakeholders is a super important job. And in a way, you need to sell in both directions. You need to sell upwards to the shareholder base why this is the right ambition, and why what you're going to achieve over the coming period is part of an overall longer term, really exciting vision that the company's moving towards. And you need to sell to your team why they should sign up for some goals, why they think they're going to be achievable, why they're worth the hard work, where it's going to take the company, and what we're going to be able to achieve together. And ideally, and something I've learned over the last 12 to 18 months, you want to set goals that you're going to slightly exceed rather than slightly miss. And we've become much more disciplined about that, and continually setting ourselves a high bar, slightly exceeding it, and raising our expectations.
So it sounds like it starts with looking at past data. What has performance been like? Why?
Yep.
Setting a ambitious target and a method of getting there, and then selling that to the team. And then once you get the team buy-in, then you sell it upwards to the investors as to why that's the right target and how you're going to get there.
More or less, it's the process is a little bit more iterative than that, because the shareholder base will have a view. They won't wait for you to do the full sales job with the team and then just present them with something. So they'll, you have to engage in dialogue with both. And engaging in dialogue with both also means that you avoid getting too far with one set of stakeholders and then realizing that you're sort of aligning on something that the other group of stakeholders aren't going to be happy with. And that can be the case in either direction. So it's an iterative process with both, rather than complete the process with one and then inform the other in either direction.
Yeah.
In terms of starting with past data, yes, I think our basic system for budgeting or goal setting, other than if we're going to do something completely brand new, is to look at existing performance and then look at what the major sort of projects or improvements we're trying to drive are, and what impact they're going to have on the key input line items, and therefore how we expect performance to accelerate in a future time period versus an existing one.
Boiling this down into managing on an individual level with your executive team, Phil said that you were also excellent at understanding people's capabilities, their career trajectory, what else they had on their plates, what sort of L&D pathway they were on. He said that you had extremely high EQ when you approach this process with an individual. How does it change when you're talking about company-wide, but when you're doing it with your executive team?
The company is a series of individuals, and I think another important part of my job is getting to know everybody. And I don't know every single person in the company, but I know almost everyone. And I really make an effort to keep it that way and to get to know all the new people, so that I may, when they start, so that I maintain this basically knowing everybody. And there are also many different definitions of what it means to know somebody, from knowing somebody's name to having a deep relationship with everybody. But I try to know people more than just superficially knowing what their name is. And I think if you know people, then and you know a bit about them, you know what their ambitions are, then you can start to spot opportunities. And in the case of my exec team and the SLT, which is the sort of next level leadership group around the exec team, I try to have a sense of what steps they're trying to take. If somebody leaves or if we start a new project, I try to form a sense of how we can use those changes to create opportunities for people to take on new things. And that's something we've been effective at over the last year or so. We've had a lot of change in our exec team. Our chief product officer has become our CPTO. Our chief customer officer expanded her role to become our chief marketing officer. Our COO took on the commercial area as well. We hired a CFO, which we didn't have before. So most people's roles in the exec team have changed over the last year and a bit, and that's created new stretch opportunities for people. And then I could talk about the next level down in a similar way. And I think understanding what people are good at and what they want to improve at, and constantly thinking about your organization in this way and creating opportunities for people to stretch, especially when we're pretty conservative about headcount growth. This is still a difficult economic environment. We're committed to operating our business profitably going forward, so we don't have unlimited budgets to add new people. Seeing these opportunities, which requires getting to know people and understanding what makes them tick, I think is another part of my job as our leader.
Moving on from understanding people and touching on one thing that you said there, that you decided now to become profitable. You've raised 180 million across debt and equity over the lifespan of the business, which seems like it's more of a growth and take over the market style play. And profitability is classically a build a sustainable long-term business, but that's at the cost of growth. What came into that decision? And it feels like a pivot. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. So I'd frame the company in 3 phases. I guess phase 1, 2013 to 2020, we were venture backed, but we raised relatively modest sums of money, and we used that to get the business to about £50 million in revenue and close to break even. And we spent some, but not all of the money that we'd raised to get there. Phase 2, COVID pandemic came along. We're exceptionally fortunate. Our business tripled year on year in the first year of COVID, and business became highly profitable. And that's when we raised the vast majority of the money that you mentioned. With the hyper growth that we saw during that period, we had 2 strategic challenges that had existed in the background, but really came to the fore. One was that we had a significant market share in the UK market, but we hadn't really proven ourselves internationally, and the UK market was finite. So building a more compelling international business became really critical. The second thing was that we'd built our business in the UK with a lot of the supply and operational side of the business outsourced to third parties. And as we developed further, we felt it was important to build that muscle internally ourselves as well. And in particular, we felt it was important to physically build that muscle in the Netherlands, which is the sort of global center of the flower industry. So it's the right place to build it for many reasons. And because of that, we raised a large sum of money, specifically with a view to acquiring 2 businesses, Blumon and Bergamot, which we did in 2021. And then we entered our third phase where, the company still had a robust cash balance, but much of the funds raised had gone into acquiring other businesses. The benefits of the COVID pandemic wore off and were replaced by various macroeconomic challenges instead. And the fundraising environment became difficult in general and difficult for consumer businesses or businesses that were perceived as COVID winners in particular. So at that point, we entered, I guess, a third phase where we had to get profitable because we were not going to be able to sustain ourselves forever with the funds that we had remaining after, given the investment that we'd made in the acquisitions. And it wasn't clear what the sort of future fundraising prospects would be like or when they would improve. And now I think we're entering a fourth phase, which is we have got the company profitable and it's growing attractively as well. So I think you can have both, but it takes time to get there. And growth is expanding quite significantly year on year. And our goal from here is to re-accelerate growth, but also keep the business profitable because going out and raising more money to re-become unprofitable and lose the discipline that we've now built in an environment where fundraising remains challenging, I don't think would be the right decision.
Feels like you're being very reactive in the best way to the fundraising environment and therefore what the knock-on implications are for the business model, which makes a lot of sense. And something that when I interviewed Graham Hobson of Photobox, he said that he'd wish he'd been more reactive because they bootstrapped what he said for far too long and had friends in other companies raising money when money was cheap and then evolving the business when the fundraising market sort of dried up. But going back to something that seems extremely difficult from the outside is you bought two companies and you went through this M&A process, but more specifically, you went through merging three teams into one. Can you speak to what are the pains and the lessons of that merge process?
Yeah, bringing three teams together isn't easy. We've done it in two quite different ways. So I'll focus more on Blumon, which was the larger acquisition we made with Bergamot. Actually, the founder stayed on for 2 years after the acquisition, and he ran the business relatively independent. And as he planned to step away, he groomed his number two to sort of become the successor, and this person is now the managing director of Bergamot, and it still operates relatively independently. With Blumon, it's deeply integrated, and it's been incredibly hard work, but also now 4 years in, incredibly rewarding to have done it. So with Blumon, the founders decided to leave, as did the management team of Blumon, sort of in the first few months after the acquisition. So there was really no choice but to pursue an integration. We also, there was a lot of strategic rationale to pursue the integration as well. Blumon could bring a lot to Bloom and Wild, in particular on the sort of supply and operational side, which was one of the rationales for the investment. Bloom and Wild could bring a lot to Blumon in particular because Blumon had been a self-purchase subscription-focused business and was trying to become more of a flower gifting business, which is what how Bloom and Wild had built itself up. So we had quite tangible things to bring to the other party, and those required a more integrated approach. The biggest difficulty was that we didn't know each other, and we couldn't get to know each other because it was COVID and we couldn't travel between countries easily. There were all sorts of restrictions. So we did the acquisitions fully over Zoom. I first visited the Blumon office 5 months after acquiring Blumon. I met people. I met the founders once or twice over the years because we're in the same industry. But that was a really weird feeling. And then I was only allowed to spend 12 hours in the Netherlands at the time. Those were the travel restrictions. I couldn't stay the night or anything. And it was quite challenging to be able to build relationships and trust in that environment. And basically, there's no substitute for spending time with people realizing that your intentions are positive, people realizing that you respect them and their work and you want to continue to treat them well. I think people realizing that you're going to sort of like muck in and you're not this like ivory tower type leader is important as well. I think something that made a massive difference, it was a couple of years after the acquisition, and I was over at the Bloemon office in Amsterdam, and the dishwasher was blocked, and I knew how to fix it, and so I fixed it myself. And lots of people saw me literally like kneeling down at the dishwasher fixing it, and I think people realized that I was the opposite of an ivory tower leader, and I was quite literally prepared to get my hands dirty. And that type of thing I think makes a massive difference because people sort of see the human side of your leadership. And I didn't do it to be performative. I did it because there was a problem and I knew how to solve the problem. Maybe it's an example where I shouldn't have goal-kept, but
let's think deeply, act swiftly, surely. Perfect
you need to
representation
think
of the values.
So I think over time, as you invest in relationships with people and as you model behaviors that your own team have seen over the years, you earn trust. That's the way that I personally own trust. And then this replicates itself across many interactions. So others on the team also did so. I think there's also there's like a tailwind and a headwind. So for people who stick around in the combined entity, they tended to grow internally with the business and take on more responsibility, including folks that are sort of ex-Bloemon folks. And then some people, it wasn't for them and they moved on. That's natural. And we hired new people to replace them who'd never known life pre the businesses coming together. So if they preferred it when it was just Bloemon or just Bloemon Wild, then those people had moved on and were replaced with people who only knew the Bloemon Wild group as a combined group. And so over time, I think there's a passage of time factor as well, but it requires a lot of hands-on, deliberate, personal investment in people, and there's no substitute for that.
Yeah, I suppose it feels like investing time, as you say, there's no substitute for, but then there's different qualities, the different quality of time and how you invest time with people. And I'm guessing this value restructure or redevelopment as a combined group feels like one of those like very high quality uses of time as a new team.
I think it was reasonably high quality. I think what was important for the Bloemon team in particular was that we didn't impose Bloemon Wild's legacy values on them, but we instead created new ones together. I think that gave them a sense of being part of something bigger rather than sort of being like a subsidiary. And obviously, Bloemon Wild was the larger company and the acquiring party, so that was the dynamic. But that moment has passed, and now we all work at one company, and we're all trying to make the company, which has multiple brands and trades in multiple countries, but is one company with one management team, one supply chain, one tech platform. We're trying to make that company as successful as we can, and I think once people feel that that's the mission going forward, then you can move forward from there.
Mm. Was there any way that you did this value session differently from when you were 20 and 30 people, or did the thread largely stay the same?
I did not personally attend the values session the second time. So I gave input. I didn't want to dominate it. I think I said, sorry if I didn't make this clear before. So I gave input in particular around care, and I left it. It was voluntary if you wanted. So the first time, everybody in the company spent half a day doing it. The second time, you could volunteer to participate, and people from each of the 3 brands volunteered to participate. I gave some input about care, and I trusted the process to see what people came up with, and I signed off the recommendation that came out at the end, because I thought people had thought about it. But I thought that me attending and me saying, well, I think it should be this or should be that, would have biased it too much in favor of legacy Bloom and Wild approach, and I wanted to make it feel more collaborative and more balanced between the 3 brands.
Wow, that's a huge testament to being very caring and thoughtful about the company and how your presence might dominate a particular situation, and a very long-term decision, it feels, which it seems like a thread that shines through lots of how you approach your leadership. We haven't got that much time left, sadly, and so I have one more question that's more of a company focus, and I'd love to go on to you specifically. With your board, you said that you have quite a large board, and that also you set your board agendas in advance, almost at the start of the year. You set your board agendas for most of the year. This is something I haven't heard of before. Can you explain this process and how your board agendas evolve, and and generally how your relationship with your board has been?
Look, we have a large board because we have a lot of shareholders who've put a lot of money into the business because we've raised a lot of money, and they rightly want to have representation and governance, and I respect that. And then we all think that the board should not just be investors, but should also be other people with relevant experience as well. So the board is large. I think because it's large, it makes sense for it to not meet too frequently, because otherwise it's a lot of demands on a lot of people's time. So over the years, we've reduced the board frequency from 10 to 8 to 6 to 5 to 4 board meetings per year over 12 years of the business. And I think that works much better because we update the board once a quarter and have a strategic discussion. It means that we're not constantly prepping board meetings, which is good because there's a lot of other things to do. It means that each discussion is more substantive because more things have happened, more plans have been developed since the previous board meeting. So that works well. Because the board meets quite irregularly, there's a risk that of blind spots and that I and my exec team don't know what's on the minds of the board members. So we try to be structured about interacting with our board members in between board meetings, and in particular in the run-up to board meetings, as we're like planning out the discussion and the materials, and that's been important. We also, at our board's request, start every session with every board meeting with an exec session where it's just the board members and me, but not my leadership team. And the purpose of that is to for the board members to share what's sort of front of mind for them, and in particular if there's anything that wasn't in the materials that they want to cover at the start of the meeting. They prefer to do that in that environment, and that tends to work well because this whole process means that we have a well-planned discussion, and it's clear to me what's front of mind for board members, and we can therefore use the time usefully from their perspective, given that they are not involved in the business day to day, and usefully from my perspective because I can direct the discussion towards where they're most able to help. and all of that works well. Because we don't meet that often, we can't cover everything every time, and we don't have that many meetings. So we try to be structured about an annual process, which connects also to the fact that we have a budgeting process. We do 2 of the board meetings in person, which are longer ones. We do 2 of them as calls because some of the board members live in other countries. So we've tried to design our process around this calendar, and that's worked well for making it more structured.
Well, we don't have enough time to go into everything that I have on this very long list. Much like you don't have time to touch on everything with the board. But I'd love to spend the last section talking more about you personally, because you are quite an extraordinary edge case, it feels. I've interviewed 54, you're the 54th. Sort of scale up and late stage CEO. But I most recently interviewed Anthony Fletcher, who was CEO of Graze, and you've said in multiple different interviews that Graze were a bit of an inspirational company in terms of letterbox delivery of consumer goods. And I know that you also went to university with Anthony.
Yep.
And so I asked him ahead of this interview, what question, if he was sat in my shoes, would he ask you? And he said that many founders, especially Brits, run out of steam at 100 million, 12 years. And once they've banked a big check, why haven't you?
This job is an extraordinary privilege. And I am so thrilled that I get to do this job. And this is how I get to spend my one precious time on this planet. And I honestly wouldn't rather be doing anything else. I enjoyed this period much more than I enjoyed month 1, packing flowers in a rented unit in New Covent Garden Flower Market in the winter, or, things like that. And just being so frustrated in the early days by all the things that I wanted to do that I didn't have the resources or know how to do. And now I'm extremely fortunate. I get to lead a business that's reached meaningful scale, is profitable, is growing, has a strong reputation with our customers. I'm supported by a great team that I enjoy working with. I have good relationships with, who have strong mastery of their respective areas. So it's an amazing job, and I'm super excited about where we can go from here. I think the opportunity to go from where we are now, which is primarily a UK business and primarily a flower business, to really building a pan-European gifting platform is an enormous opportunity. I think it will further have positive impact on our customers who want to express emotions to each other more thoughtfully, which is what we're trying to help them do. And I wouldn't have this job if I hadn't started here 12 years ago. I wouldn't have been hired for it, but I have the privilege of being in this seat because I started here and have come this far. So I'm very excited about where I can go from here, and haven't run out of steam at all. I actually feel full of steam at this moment. Now, things can change in life, and you never know what's around the corner. So that's not me sort of naively saying that this will always be the case. But right now, I feel immensely privileged to get to do what I do.
And Phil, when I asked him the same question, he asked, how have you been able to be so patient and consistent? He said that you've stayed consistent with a very hard work ethic, no signs of slowing down, full of steam, as you're saying, for 12 years. What's the secret to this consistency?
Look, I work hard, but I'm an ambitious person, so I would work hard at something else if I didn't work hard at this, either something else professional or something else like out of work. I do a bit of, I'm on the board of a charity in my limited spare time, so I do a bit of that as well, but I would dedicate myself to something. I think it would be a waste to to not dedicate myself to anything. And if I'm going to dedicate myself to something, I love this and I'm excited about where it can go. So I'd like it to be this. I also, I work really hard, but I have a lot of control over like how and when I work. And that's a privilege of being the CEO. Some things trump my calendar. If one of my shareholders wants to have a call this afternoon, then I'll have a call with them this afternoon. But typically, I can organise how and when I'm doing my work such that it suits me. And I think that freedom and flexibility, really makes it more manageable than if I was, before this, I was a management consultant for 8 years. And you could get an email on a Sunday night saying that you're on a plane to goodness knows where the next morning for the next few months. So compared to that, I have a lot of freedom and flexibility, and I think that helps me find the balance.
To close this off, I have so many aspects of your journey and experience I'd love to touch on, which things like how you moved around a lot as a child, how your parents got divorced, and what impact that has on you as a leader. Even when you were at the start of Bloom & World and you asked Caroline, you asked her dad for her hand in marriage, you said that Bloom & World would be a success. And that seems like a very powerful, motivating promise. But if I had to narrow it down to what I think feels like the most interesting aspect, or thing that I still haven't quite figured out, is because you moved around so much, you have, is it an Israeli mother, Australian father, grew up in France, then moved to the UK when you were about 5 years old. You've said that you had to fit in at a very young age and a very foundational age, and that led to this aspect of sort of seeking lots of validation, trying to please people to get them to accept you. And that stuck through sort of schooling years, university, and then early career. Now, I relate to this in some ways, but it feels to me like it's more of a scarcity-based mindset, where it's hoping for someone else to give you the validation, it's almost like external validation, as opposed to an internal validation. And so I would love to understand how your internal dialogue has evolved over the years, potentially away from this scarcity base, which now feels like it's a lot more abundant, especially given these last set of answers that you've shared about how you view the journey and your experience as CEO. I'd love to know what has been pivotal moments in that evolution of your internal dialogue.
It's a really powerful summary, so thank you for all the research into me that you've done. I'm flattered. I think I described a few minutes ago the company in 4 phases, and I said now we're entering into this 4th phase of profitable growth. And I think when you reach that point at sufficient scale, and we'll look to grow further from here, but at sufficient scale, it's quite a watershed moment in a CEO or a leadership journey, because you've earned some validation and the numbers don't lie. So to have a business whose customers are, day in, day out, love what you do sufficiently that they are trusting you such that you're growing and you're profitable, I think is a really strong sense of empowerment. So, you referenced that I was looking for validation. I'm still looking for validation. I still love customers giving me positive feedback. I still am very driven by customers giving negative feedback, and me, going from symptom to system, as you put it earlier, to try and avoid that repeating. But on balance, I feel that the business has got to a good place, and that we can, one of my American investors calls it play offense. Spent a lot of time talking about the goalkeeping area of the football field, but going out and trying to score goals and feeling that foundations are solid, and I'm excited to be getting into that phase and doing some brilliant things for our customers. And I think that's something that over the last few months in particular, I really feel that that we've earned as a business, and that gives me a lot of energy.
Wow, well, this has been phenomenal. Thank you so much. The closing tradition on this show is, because you've been so generous with your time, is there anything that a community of curious, kind, wildly caring listeners could support you with?
Absolutely. I would love as many of your listeners as possible to send me their feedback on Bloom and Wild, Bloom on Bergamot. What do people love about it? And more importantly, what could we do better? And people can message me on LinkedIn or find me however they want to find me. And I love unsolicited feedback, and feedback's a gift that helps us improve. So please don't be shy, and I'd love to know what people think we could do better.
What a powerful close. As a company that's evolving into the gifting business of Europe, feedback being the most valuable gift feels very aligned. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, AJ.